I'm delighted to introduce Trinny Woodall now, who's going to be talking to you about her brand, Trinny London.
Hello, everybody. I came up with the idea for Trinny London probably about 10 years ago, and I had a totally different career. And I'd started my life spending the first 10 years of my career doing what I thought other people felt I should do, which is be in finance. And I used to trade commodities. I hated every single day of it, but I had this obligation, I was the youngest of 6 kids, that my dad would notice me. You know, that was totally the wrong way to go into a career. And also, I needed to grow up in my 20s. I had a lot of growing up to do. So I got into my 30s, and I kind of discovered by an accident, well, I sort of knew this when I was about 6.5, that I loved making over girlfriends and making them feel better about themselves and changing their hair or their makeup or whatever. So this, in the end, became a career for me. And I did it for a number of years in newspapers and telly and stuff. And I always find, for me, the age I am, that my careers have gone in sort of 10-year cycles. So I have 10 years thinking I'm doing one thing, and then there's a crash, bam, wham, then I pick myself up, and then I go into something else. So I had 10 years of wonderful making over lots of women, and that just gave me tremendous information on women. And then in the UK, my career then flatlined. All the other people came on board, like Gok Wan and all these people. And then we had a tiny little show in Belgium. And they said, well, you can't make a TV show in Belgium. So we went to make this TV show in Belgium, swallow my pride, take a fifth of what I was earning, downgrade everything. And what I learned in that 4 years where I was sort of traveling around the world doing these shows is how women around the world were the same about how they felt about themselves and their body and their relationship with their face, everything. So in that experience, they would always also feel flummoxed about makeup. And there were lots of stages by which women felt, I need to start over. There was the girl who has been top dog at school or felt comfortable at school or hidden away at school, and she's in her first job and she feels, I need to polish it up a bit, but what do I do? My mum never taught me, and I don't want to be like my mad friends, you know. Then there was the kind of girl who might be coming back to work. She might have had a baby, she's coming back to work, and all the people around her are slightly younger, and she's thinking, okay, how do I fit in? How do I feel cool here? Then there's kind of a woman reaching menopause, and she's like, I feel quite invisible, everything's changed, it's never going back to how it was, and how can I get my confidence back? And then there's women in their 70s. One of my favorite kind of women to make over, of just making them feel totally ageless. So that I kind of really got to know these sectors. And in all this time, when I spent this 4 years traveling, I took all my makeup, which I did for 10 years, and I would mush it together. I would make the formula I wanted. I would make the color I wanted, the texture I wanted. I always liked makeup to always never sit on top of the skin, but become a part of a person's face. And I put these in these little plastic things, and I'd take it around. I'd be in a room, a loo actually, somewhere in the world, and I'd be doing my makeup from the stack, which is in my hand, and a woman might say, where can I buy that? What is it? And I'll go, this, as they had their big makeup bag. I go, this is my makeup bag. And then they go, where can I buy it? And I go, fuck. Because I hadn't, I'd sort of had this thing I use myself. I knew, I don't know how many of you are in a place where you're in one job, but there's an idea inside your head, and it's getting the idea from inside your head where it's protected, it's safe, it will never fail, and getting it out on the table for everyone to see and expose and critique and tell you what they think. And I think that's the hardest step for anyone who wants to be a true entrepreneur, because you need to make that step. Like all these people have done that on this panel, and many of you will do or are doing. And then you have to really ride the wave and stick to your, hold your nerve, because there'll be a lot of people whose opinions aren't brilliant who will really give you their opinion. And you have to kind of, I have a habit of listening to the last meeting, thinking, oh, that's really exciting. And then I now have to take a step back and say, yeah, but let me now know what I know inside, which gave me the incentive to start this business. And there are many people who might say, this is how I think you should grow it. The more people who I get working within Trinny London will all bring more qualified views, because I started with a really young team. And so it's important for me to stick with my intuition, and really know that, but also get people working in the business who are smarter than me in areas where I'm not. And I know what I'm good at. You know, I know that I really know women. I know that I really know what formulas I want. I really know I want this simple solution for women. You know, when we talked about, you know, we were doing our first fundraiser and I was talking about what it was. And I said, to me, it's the iPhone of makeup. You know, it should be so simple. It should be totally ageless. I hate defining women by age. I really do. And it should also be something that's it's easy to use, it's easy to choose, it's easy to carry. So I kind of had my idea. I got an initial fundraise from two people who I was kind of being sidetracked. How many of you ever get sidetracked when you're into something? And my sister, you know, who's older than me and I look up to, had this idea and we've talked about it a bit. And I thought, well, maybe I should do something with my sister. And I kind of knew at some stage that I had to get out of that. I was like 2 months in, but I had this idea. And I kind of really wanted to do an idea, but I needed that thing. And I was sitting with my daughter's godfather and I was telling him about the thing I was doing with my sister. And at the end, I talked about this other thing. And then when he left after dinner, he said, Trini, why aren't you doing the stack? You know, why are you doing this thing with your sister? And I thought, okay, think about it. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And then a woman who worked in beauty, and she was the head of Mintel, which is a big research company. And I told her about the idea, and I said I wanted to offer a really simple solution for women that I can also sell entirely online, which will be personalized to them with some technology I want to bring into it. And she got the idea, and she went off and she did her little research. She came back to me 2 weeks later, and she said, Trini, you know, of the trends that are the next 5 years, 3 of the big trends, personalization, portability, and kind of cream-based products, are in your concept. You have to do it. And that gave me the confidence to do it, actually. I didn't have the confidence to do it before. So I then thought, okay, I want to IP this. I want to, you know, so I raised 150 from them. And with that, I did the prototypes, which I remember the first prototype coming back, it was like, I cried. It was so far removed from what I wanted it to be, and it took me 13 prototypes to get my stack, to be airtight, to click, to snap, to look beautiful, to everything I needed it to be. And then with my formulas, just to get them right and to get the consistencies right and the colours right. And then I had sort of the very beginning I would sell in store, but I just felt I want to shake up the business a bit more. And I also had heard from many of these women their kind of disappointment at the beauty counter, how they'd go up and the lighting would be weird and somebody would put makeup on and they'd go outside in the daylight and they'd think, ugh, what is this on my face, you know? Or they'd sit in the chair and some glamorous makeup artist would do their makeup and then they'd leave, take them things home, having overbought, and they think, how on earth do I recreate that on my face? So I knew I wanted to bring together my sort of knowledge of women with a personalization where women could have the confidence and trust to go online and to order makeup where they might not even have had it in store. So we did this thing which is called Match to Me and took a long time developing that, where you can go on and put in your skin, hair and eyes, and then it tells you which makeup you suit. From our 75 SKUs, it will give you about 40 SKUs or 35 SKUs that suit you. And I love personalization because I think the future of a lot of things in this sector are where you feel it's really been targeted to you. And I think then you can talk more directly to a consumer. And the other thing I did as well is I had to slightly reinvent myself because I was attached with Darling Susanna for many years as a part of a duo. And I remember I thought, how am I going to do that? Because also it had been so much of my career. And we both made the decision together to you know, she was going to write a book, I was going to try and start this thing. And I remember going to see Facebook, and Facebook said, you know, just go home after this meeting and put your phone up and just start chatting. So I remember I went home and I had like 3,000 followers by then. It was like, you know, just like, and I put my phone up and I went, hi, I'm in my bathroom and I'm trying this thing. And I did this. And then suddenly the room came on and said, hi, Trini, I haven't seen you for 17 years or whatever, you know. And I thought, this is amazing. And then I just, you know, talked to that community. And I think the thing that's really important for me with any social media, because I think there's so many opinions around social media now, is, you know, there are people who are obsessed with a perfect feed. There are people who just want to have, you know, this should be this day and this should be the next day. The way we interact with social media is so different from 3 years ago. It's so different from 6 months ago, you know, with IGTV, which started 6 months ago and which had been here about 9 months ago. People weren't using it. I sort of found out there was an algorithm on IGTV which would allow you, because it wasn't commercializing itself yet, it would allow you to, it would, you know, choose the most unusual films and put them there to give you exposure. So we, between Trinny London Instagram and my Instagram, where there's this crossover, we put out these films, and we do very raw films. Some of you might have watched them. We do very raw films, but we got in 8 weeks, we got 9 million views on these films. My sales doubled, and my revenue doubled. And that was just that it was like, what was really interesting about that for me is you have this kind of community of people who've heard about your brand, all right? And we all have the different rings of that community. And when you do social media in an unusual way, or you try and get ahead of the curve, instead of either targeting that community or advertising to that community or doing a friend of a friend, it goes to a total outlier. And that outlier is going to be drawn in, not so much by it knew that I did fashion and now I'm doing this, but it just sees something and it decides if it likes it. And that for me is somebody who will convert to the brand at no cost to me. So that was a very exciting time, and really looking at how could social media work really well for my business, because I think when I go on, you know, my marketing person said to me recently, oh, we have to spread. We can't just be doing things in social media. And I said, have you been on a train recently? Have you been on a tube recently? You know, you're on a tube, you're like this. There's 4 places I can get to you, and they're generally on your phone. I don't know if I'm interested to do a big tube ad, because I don't see so many people looking at the tube ad. And the ability to get to an incredibly targeted, focused market using social media is phenomenal. And the word of mouth feeling, you know, when you look at building a brand, an online brand, you're looking at cohorts, you're looking at people who come in and they have a lifetime value to that business. And so we started this thing called the Trini Tribe, and it started on Facebook, and it was women who just were inspired maybe by stuff I did on Trinny Woodall, and then on Trinny London they started this, and we now have 12,000 members of the Trini Tribe, and they are our advocates for the brand. We don't pay them anything, no money exchanges hands, but there's this kind of yin and yang. I go to Zara for them and tell them what's in store. I tell them how beautiful Evolve Beauty is. I share things, and I share about Trinny London, and in return they share about Trinny London, and they share about Trinny London because they love it and they feel a passion for it. And those early adopters of the brand, those people who really believe in your brand, are your best advocates. And, you know, ultimately, if we look at the reasons we consider making a purchase, it's kind of a mixture. We might read something in a magazine, we might read something in the mail, we might see something online, but it's the friend telling us at one stage, you know. And if I think of all the times I've bought something, generally, I might have read it in a magazine, but it's the friend who cements that decision for me to purchase so often, or somebody I speak to. So those advocates are extremely important. And, you know, when I look at how we're going to grow Trinny London, for me, it's building that tribe up. You know, I don't want to give all my money to Mark Zuckerberg. And at the moment, you know, of the revenue I get per month, probably I pay 35% of it to Mark Zuckerberg to get people in front of the brand. But 65% of it is organic. And it's organic using those advocates. And it started with, you know, we started with very few. And so I think it's incredibly important. And I just think understanding, you know, the hardest thing I had when I went to Unilever Ventures after my little seed to get my first round, and one could do a whole other trip about getting investment. That's another whole ballgame of frustrations one can feel. But I remember the guy at Unilever, I was in the first meeting after 20 meetings, mainly with men, sorry boys, who were like, can you just separate out that personalization and put any old product in it, and then can you do the product in a store? And I was like, no, it's the uniqueness of those things together, which I feel is my USP and my unique proposition. But I was just in that meeting, and he said to me, who's your target market? And I said, it's not about an age, it's about an attitude. And he said, no, it has to be about an age. And I said, I don't agree with you. And then a year later, I went back to get more money from them. And I said, Olivia, I have to share some facts with you, you know, of our audience who buys. And he goes, what is it? You're very French, lovely man. Very good. And I said, you know, 16 to 24, we have 9%. 24 to 34, we have 23%. 34 to 44, we have 23%. 44 to 54, we had 23%. And it was just, you know, when you get a certain sense of what you really wanted to achieve and who you really wanted to talk to. And then when you begin to see that those customers, you know, of all different ages, get what you're trying to tell them and share with them. And that's the most rewarding thing. I mean, the most rewarding thing for me, and any of you will find this if you have a brand, is, you know, they've been to a class. You know, it's like just how many people, they've been to a class, or they've tried the stack, or they show me their stack somewhere. And, you know, the bigger that gets, the more I feel the ripple's growing. But it's exciting. It's, you know, it's the most stimulating thing to be an entrepreneur, and it's the hardest thing because, you know, I sold my house, I sold 80% of my clothing, I did a lot of things. Even though I had done well in my career, I had a moment where I was earning no money, I had a 10-year-old daughter to support, I couldn't afford the mortgage on my house, and I had to kind of really think, what have I got to sell? Do any of you follow Gary Vaynerchuk? You know, he's like, I mean, I love this guy, and he's like, you know, what have you got to sell? There's trainers on your feet. You know, what are you prepared to do to get there? That's a big question. And what sacrifice are you prepared to make? And that does come into the factor of being an entrepreneur, because there's going to be times when it's going to be tough. But my last little bit of just advice I give myself, all right, and it's just, is I can build up the picture that I know what's in front of me and I know what they're going to say. But I never know what's behind the closed door. And there's moments when you might be feeling, will anyone get my idea? Or, you know, nobody's going to do anything. Something will happen. And if you put your energy and your passion and your drive into it, something will happen, and it will be the right thing to happen. And I can only tell you that from experience of having many ups and downs in careers. But it's just such an important thing to remember. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Trini. A wonderful lesson in gut intuition and in following your passions. And I think we should all be going home and doing IGTV, frankly. That's my plan for afterwards.